Corporate governance is not new to Islam. The Islamic concept of corporate governance stresses the three main areas of accountability, transparency, and trustworthiness. The need to strictly follow this corporate governance requirement is giving greater weight, more so far good-fearing person by linking the practice to God. The corporate governance is very intentions due to the following reasons, which are: first, resolve conflict of interest among management, board, stakeholder, and other stakeholders, and protect all stakeholders' interests. Second, set visions and mission statements and strategic target for the company. Third, achieve the strategic target set by ensuring application. So, best practice in internal control system, regulatory compliance, accounting and auditing, risk management, information disclosure, Sharia compliance, and the last one is socially responsibility business.
Sound corporate governance is important as it ensures that IFIs are operating within the principle of the Sharia in its overall activities, and that is its performance is role in disclosing profit motivated by the needs to maximize the interest of shareholder. The main objective of this article is to discuss the elements of corporate governance and to build a framework the conceptualize corporate governance from the Sharia perspective. The research has been combined the descriptive and analytic methods. The study showed that the model of corporate governance within the premise of the Islamic economic system lends toward being stakeholder-centered as the governance structure in Islam safeguard all rights and interests of all stakeholders and shareholders. Employing good corporate governance help the company regulate risk and reduce the opportunity for corporations. Often, scandal and fraud within a company become more likely where director and senior management do not have to comply with a formal governance code. The board should meet regularly, retain control over the business, and monitor those in management to enable it to see how the company is functioning. Furthermore, a good corporation governance scheme will make clear to every officer of the company his or her duty and will encourage them to keep this duty in mind when making decisions.
There are 14 principles of corporate governance, minimum standards and specific requirements for Islamic bank and takaful operation. But I will explain to all of you 5 principles only, which is: firstly, principle 1, which is should be headed by an effect board, which assumes specific responsibility. Secondly, is the principle 2, which is should be an effective board compositions with a strongly independent element. Thirdly, principle 3, it should be a clear division of responsibility at the helm of an institution. Fourthly, is principle 4, which is should be a formal and transparent process for the appointment of director to the board and appointment of CEO. The last one from me is principle 5, is director must be a person of caliber, credibility, and integrity with the necessary skill and experience and be able to devote time and commitment.
Principle of corporate governance. The 6 of principles of corporate governance is the board should meet regularly and be duly furnished with complete and timely information. Next, the directors and the chief executive officer must do formal and an ongoing assessment of the effectiveness of the board as a whole. The board of Bank Negara Malaysia should be a formal and transparent procedure for fixing the remuneration packages of board members, chief executive officer, and senior management. Then, persons empowered with decision-making authority should exercise care to avoid situations that may give rise to a conflict of interest situation. There should be a clear separation between shareholders and management so as not to impede sound corporate governance.
Principle number 11, they should be robust. Auditing, board and management need to maintain professional and objective relationships. Principle number 12, licensed institution should engage in regular, effective and fair communication with shareholders or stakeholders. While principle number 13 is conducting corporate governance in a transparent manner can reinforce sound corporate governance. Principle number 14, which is the last principle, is board is collectively responsible and accountable for the veracity of disclosure and management of risk.
Background of the Islamic Financial Services Board. The Islamic Financial Services Board, centered in Kuala Lumpur, regulates Islamic financial services. On November 3, 2002, it was formally started operating, and on March 10, 2003, it began operations. It is an international standard setting group comprised of regulatory and supervisory agencies with a concern in the soundness and stability of the Islamic financial services industry, which is generally defined to cover banking, capital markets, and insurance. Malaysia is the Islamic Financial Services Board home country that has enacted the Islamic Financial Services Board Act 2002, which grants the Islamic Financial Services Board the same privilege and immunities as other international organizations and diplomatic missions. Functions of the Islamic Financial Services Board. First, to encourage the growth of a responsible and transparent Islamic financial services business by developing new or adopting existing international standards that are Sharia compliant and encouraging their acceptance. Second, to develop criteria for identifying, measuring, managing, and disclosing risks for the Islamic financial services industry, taking into account international standards for valuation, income and expense calculation, and disclosure, and to provide guidance on effective supervision and regulation of institutions offering Islamic financial products. Third, to improve and coordinate activities for the development of instruments and methods for effective operations and risk management. Fourth, to urge member nations to work together to strengthen the Islamic financial services industry. Fifth, to make training and people development in areas connected to the efficient regulation of the Islamic financial services industry and linked market more access. The Islamic Financial Services Board functions and activities are governed by 4 key documents. There are Articles of Agreement as at November 2018, Islamic Financial Services Board Act 2002, Islamic Financial Services Board Bylaws as at November 2018, Guidelines and Procedures for the Preparation of Standards. Islamic Financial Services Board also have issued guiding principle for the industry, which is IFSB 8. It is guiding principles on governance for takaful undertakings. Then IFSB 10 is guiding principles on Sharia governance system for institutions offering Islamic financial services. IFSB 8 is the organization first standard for the takaful industry. It focuses on governance since knowing contractual rights and duties of stakeholders in various takaful business models is critical and necessary before other things can be properly standardized. In the context of takaful operators, strong corporate governance should refer to a set of organizational arrangements that ensure that management's activities are aligned as far as practicable with the interests of its stakeholders and Sharia principles. Let's move on to the next point. The guiding principles on Sharia governance system standard is intended to facilitate a better understanding of Sharia governance issues and how stakeholders can ensure that an appropriate and effective Sharia governance system is in place, as well as to provide a higher level of transparency in terms of issuance, review, and audit for Sharia ruling compliance. Plus, competence, independence, secrecy, and consistency are the four key aspects of governance in the IFSP 10.
The Accounting and Auditing Organization for Islamic Financial Institution AAOIFI is an independent non-profit organization that develops accounting, auditing, governance, ethics, and Sharia compliance standards for Islamic financial institutions and the industry. It was founded in 1990. The AAOIFI has almost 200 members, including central banks and Islamic financial institutions from 45 countries. The requirements of the AAOIFI are not required for its members. Several countries, on the other hand, have adopted the AAOIFI's guidelines, and others have released guidelines based on them. AAOIFI was founded in accordance with an agreement of association signed by Islamic financial institutions in Algiers on 1 Safar 1410 Hijrah or February 26, 1919. It was then registered in the state of Bahrain on 11 Ramadan 1411, which corresponds to 27 March 1991. The mission is to guide IF's market operation on financial reporting on Sharia principles and rules. The second one is to provide IF markets with a standard that can support growth of the industry, while the mission is to standardization and harmonization of international Islamic finance practice and financial reporting in accordance to Sharia compliance. Several countries have adopted the AAOIFI principles, which were developed in cooperation with major Sharia scholars. Although AAOIFI standards are not mandatory for members, the organization has made significant progress in encouraging wider implementation of the standard in recent years. Bahrain, Malaysia, the United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, Lebanon, Syria, Sudan, and Jordan are among the countries where AAOIFI standards are either required or recommended. Many financial institutions in these countries operated under a semi-regulated market. Prior to the implementation of AAOIFI guidelines with accounting practices decided with the help of the Bank's Sharia Supervisory Board (SSB). Furthermore, Islamic Bank adopted International Accounting Standards (IAS) or the Individual National Accounting Standard during this time. As a result, Islamic financial institution specific standards were not being met. To improve accounting, auditing, governance, and ethical talk in relation to Islamic financial institution activities, while taking into account national standards and practice that are compliant with Islamic Sharia rules. Number 2 is to disseminate accounting, auditing, governance, and ethical concepts relevant to the activities of Islamic financial institutions and their application through training seminars, periodic newsletter, report correction, research, and other ways. Thirdly is to harmonize the accounting policies and procedures used by Islamic financial institution by developing and issuing accounting standard as well as interpretation of those standards to such institutions. Furthermore is to encourage good ethical practice in Islamic financial institution by preparing and issuing a code of ethics to this organization. The last one is to engage relevant regulatory organization, Islamic financial institutions, other financial institutions that provide Islamic financial services, accounting and auditing companies in order to apply AAOIF standard statement and guidelines. Here, I will give two examples. Firstly is fiduciary risk. The mudarabah contract places liability of the loss on the mudarib. Secondly is displaced commercial risk, where Islamic bank smooth the return investment account holder, IAH we call that, by varying the percentage of profit taken as mudarib share. The next one is as a result, with the support of banking authorities, AAOIF standards were created in an industry that is often quite fragmented. It is hoped that the development of AAOIF standards will go a long way in promoting convergence in Sharia standards and leading to further growth in the nascent market. The following are the standards that have been developed by AAOIF. This is for accounting standards. The first one is general presentation and disclosure in the financial statements of Islamic insurance companies. Second is provisions and reserve in Islamic insurance companies. Number 3 is Islamic financial services offered by commercial financial institution. Number 4 is objective of financial accounting for Islamic bank and financial institution. The next one is disclosure of base for profit allocation between owners, equity and investment account holder. Next is zakat, ijarah and ijarah muntahiyah bitamlik. Next is mudarabah financing, and the last one is musyarakah financing. While for auditing standards are objective and principle of auditing. Number 2 is the auditor's report. Number 3, terms of audit engagement. Number 4 is testing for compliance with Sharia rules and principles by an external auditor. And the last one is the auditor's responsibility to consider fraud and error in an audit of financial statement.